Hi, my name is Catherine Gloston, and this is my Module 2 presentation titled Technology and Media. So, our objectives for this module is to discuss what is technology affordance, how is technology affordance theory used in Stewart's 2015 study, what is the cognitive theory of multimedia learning, how is multimedia learning theory used in Nato, Hong, and Melly's study. Sorry if I mispronounced their names, and wrapping it up with a brief conclusion. So, very first thing is tech what are affordances? So affordances, they exist between they're a relationship between a person and an object. So in this video, it gives you just an idea of the relationship between an object and a person, the object being the chair and the person being the little girl. So the little girl, she is afforded the opportunity to sit on this chair. She has the afforded the opportunity to push the chair, whereas the elephant is not afforded the same opportunities. The elephant is not able to actually sit on the chair, and he may be able to push it, but he does not have the same affordance to be able to sit on the chair as the little girl has that affordance. Then I have this one. What is technology affordance? So here below there is a video, and it's one that definitely helps me remember technology affordance. So technology affordance is the interaction of technologies and the people who will use them. So affordances makes designers consider devices, technologies, and media in the terms of the actions and they make possible and obvious. So here there's a young man, and he's actually discussing that this controller that he has in his hand is affording him the opportunity to move his character in different directions and do different tasks. And so it affords me to, the handles afford him the opportunity to hold the controller. The handles, the other buttons, they afford me the opportunity to push forward to make my character go up, to push down to make my character go back, to go push left to go left, push right to go right. And so those are the affordances just by that controller. So how is technology affordance theory used in Stewart's 2015 study? In Stewart's 2015 study, it discussed that social media offers opportunities for widened and interactive audiences and implications for learning and literacy practices. So, social media, one of the things that they stated there is the first thing, the widened and interactive audiences, in that they are discussing Facebook. And the teacher is able to utilize Facebook to have students research and give each other feedback. But the only thing with Facebook and being that it's what's as far as an affordance, yes, social media is definitely considered a technology that, shares information, and it's conducted over the internet. So they are able to have this interactive audience. However, as far as the affordance, it's not a perceived affordance. It has to be strategized in order for it to be perceived. It's basically a hidden affordance because many students or teachers may not be totally familiar with being able to do hashtags and making sure that whatever they're researching or they want people to comment on by utilizing those hashtags, that it all can connect with each other. What is that I do like that is perceived, and it's talked about in Stewart's study, is likes. So many students and teachers understand the concept of a like. It's very simple. The word is like is there. and you click it, and therefore you liked it. So it's a perceived affordance using technology. Blogs are another thing that's discussed in Stewart's study. And basically, a blog is, that discussion is similar to the Facebook scenario to me. I don't think that it's totally perceived, but I do think it's not as hidden as Facebook. And I do believe that the blogs are a good use of technology affordance. But I think the likes are definitely perceived affordance that many teachers and students understand. So, does Stewart's 2015 study support or oppose the proposition of the theory? So, social media has its limits. Many students fear when they're utilizing the social media the use of non traditional text versus traditional text. And the other big thing is that it is often the learning, and it's often dependent upon the teacher's knowledge of the media platform, not just the teacher's knowledge, but also the student's knowledge and them actually being familiar with the social media. If a child has never been exposed to Facebook, they will never know about hashtags. They'll never know how to like a post. Although it may say like that might be definitely perceived, but they may not understand the purpose of like, or should they press this button. They may understand that it's a pressable button, but when do I actually press this button? When do I actually use a hashtag? How do I search, for relevant information to what we're learning? And the biggest thing is that many teachers were basically utilizing the social media as a strategy, and it was not being perceived as an actual tool that it is. So this study, it still has many unanswered questions. There's research that's still required. So it's not so much supporting. It's got a little support, a little opposition. So it's kind of in between to me. Next, what is cognitive theory of multimedia learning? So Mayer stated people learn more deeply from words and pictures than from words alone. So the first assumption that was given was dual channels. And in dual channels, humans possess separate channels for processing visual and auditory information. Then there's the limited capacity assumption. In this assumption, humans are limited in the amount of information that can be processed in each channel at one time. Then it wraps it up with the third assumption, which is active processing. In this one, humans engage in active learning by attending to relevant incoming information, organizing the selected information into these coherent mental representations, and the integration of the mental representation with other knowledge or prior knowledge. And you'll see how this is actually discussed more in the next slide. So the question is, how is multimedia learning theory used in Nato, Hong, and Melly's study? So in the study that they did, it was investigating the multimedia learning design principle. And so it had two theoretical frameworks. The first one was cognitive load theory. Then the second one was the cognitive theory for multimedia learning. And so in the first framework, cognitive load theory, it's the central issue that enables learners to efficiently use their information processing capacities to apply newly acquired knowledge and solve problems. All right. But the second framework, when we talk about the cognitive theory for multimedia learning, it involves the rules for effective learning. Given that there's various multimedia designs, all right, here the effective learning occurs when you select cues, you organize your representations into this working memory, and then you integrate that into long-term memory using prior knowledge, which to me all relates back to our three assumptions, right? So what it says is that the cognitive load theory and the dual coding theory and the working memory model. All right. The cognitive theory for multimedia learning is based on integrating those theories, and is supported by the three assumptions that I just talked about earlier. First, the information is either visual or auditory, like we said in the dual channels. Then, second, you have your limited capacity because it's processed and it's limited in the ability to process the information. And then you have your third one where the processing of the information in channels, it leads to this mental representation that you use with your prior knowledge to develop this long-term memory. And so the instructional material might contain graphics and words. So here you notice in this figure one, you'll see. So here in figure one, again, you'll see the cognitive theory for multimedia learning. And this image comes from out of Clark and Meyer, and it illustrates that the multimedia presentation, it may have words and pictures. Then you use the senses. It selects that's the dual channels, auditory, visual. Then you got your limited capacity, start selecting out those words using the sounds, images. It kind of organizes and picks out those cues, and then from there it goes into that active processing where it integrates your prior knowledge to this long-term memory. So the other big thing that was discussed in the study was the modality principle. And so the modality principle, it suggests that information presentation to learners should be conducted through spoken words rather than merely written text on the computer screen. So that said that it was justified given that when a need arises for the stimulus simultaneous processing of graphics and text, the students' visual channels can become overloaded. And so in this study, basically at the end, it gave this big old suggestion and stated that so in the end, they gave out some results, and those results kind of led me to believe in our next slide. So our next slide, it asks, does the study support or oppose the proposition of the theory? And so this experiment, it investigated the influence of the modality principle on test performance and perceived cognitive load among students enrolled in this Brazilian technical education course. And so the responses, they had a text group, and they had an audio group. And so the audio group actually outperformed the text group, which goes along with the saying that, when they spoke about more spoken words rather than just the text. So the audio group actually had responded more efficiently to the transfer test that they had at the end. So the study concluded that learner control and modality effects can coexist in multimedia learning, and the modality principle might benefit online learning design. So wrapping it up, in conclusion, so technology affordances, we have to remember that there are some affordances that are hidden, some that are false, and some that are perceived. Take, for instance, with our phone, We would definitely say that our apps on our phone for our phone calls definitely is perceived to say, hey, this is what I need to click to make a phone call. Wherein some other, whereas the app icon with the compass may not be perceived as, hey, this is the internet. Then for social media, we have to remember that again, there are social media platforms that are not perceived to be educational. Some people may fear privacy concerns. They may not see it as affording the opportunity for learning opportunities. So those affordances definitely may be hidden. At the end, we have to still remember that we have these channels, and most people may learn a whole lot more with auditory versus visual. So hearing certain things may sit well than rather than seeing certain things. And so there are going to be times where students are going to be selective, and we have to remember that this is how they are processing that information. So here are my references that I utilized for this presentation. I thank you all for your patience, and I welcome any feedback. Have a great day.